Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me yet, this channel is dedicated to shed some light regarding health because a lot of misinformation is out there, and I want to somewhat counter that through this channel. Okay, so in this episode, I will be talking about history on when did we start hating fat. I was born in the 1990s, and during that time, fat was demonized more than ever. Fat has been public enemy number one wherever you are in the world, starting from the US. And that's the reason why grocery stores have their own sections for low fat and fat free products like low fat dairy, low fat milk, low fat cheese, and low fat yogurt, things like that. And fatty foods like animal fat, animal meat, and butter, they were demonized and correlated with heart disease. So in this video, if you watch towards the end, you will discover how it all began.
Hi, Jonah of Primal Thinker here, and I want to have a little disclaimer here that I'm not a doctor of any sorts. I'm just a girl in the internet trying to connect the dots, sharing my own experiences with you. And if you're okay with that, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so I can share my eureka moments with you.
Okay. So when did we start hating fat? Let's start with a man, an American physiologist named Dr. Ansel Keys. And Ansel Keys was fascinated by the idea that top businessmen were having cardiovascular heart diseases. And these people have access to quality food. So what's killing these people? And that drove him to go on to study different countries around the world with this hypothesis in mind that dietary saturated fat correlates with heart diseases or causes heart diseases. And the logic is pretty simple. Imagine your kitchen sink, and you wouldn't want to pour in the grease or the oil from what you cooked to your kitchen sink because it will solidify at room temperature and it will clog your sink. And that's the basis of the hypothesis for saturated fat because saturated fat solidifies at room temperature. So he went to study different countries and collected data to find evidence that supports his hypothesis. Then he presented his work on 6 different countries. As you can see, that's Japan, Italy, England, Australia, Canada, USA. And the x-axis here, the x-axis is the amount of fat, and the y-axis is deaths due to heart disease. And as we can see, as the fat calories increases, so as the number of deaths by heart disease. So it seems to support Ansel Keys' hypothesis that saturated fat causes heart disease. And because of this, Ansel Keys made it to the cover of Time magazine, as this appears to be a legendary discovery and has the potential to lower the cases of heart diseases all over the world. Right? And to top on that snowball effect, this came out to the public and was accepted by the government, by the US government. USDA came up with a recommended food pyramid of high carbs at the bottom, at the base, and low fat at the top. So this is to align with Ansel Keys' research results. But years after that, or right after this was implemented, things started to flip. And did you know that the moment USDA have implemented this recommendation of the food pyramid, cases of obesity actually went up? In the background, scientists and researchers have been protesting about the public recommendation. Their standpoint is there's not enough evidence to point the finger on dietary saturated fat. The scientific community began to conduct multiple studies to find out if fat is indeed the enemy. Time and time again, there was no concrete proof linking saturated fat to heart diseases, to clogging arteries. I'm going to show you a clip from the documentary Fathead, showing interviews of experts about saturated fat.
Scientists have been feeding us baloney.
The hypothesis that when you eat high fat, that produces high cholesterol, and that cholesterol produces heart disease, is wrong in every one of those links.
The higher your cholesterol, the longer you live. And shows up in study after study.
When you get back and you start looking at the medical literature and you root back through to find out where this whole idea came from, it's bogus.
I have pleaded in my report and will plead again orally here for more research on the problem before we make announcements to the American public.
There were eminent scientists of the time saying this is nonsense. There is no good scientific evidence that either fat or cholesterol is at the root of heart disease.
I would only argue that senators don't have the luxury that a research scientist does of waiting until every last shred of evidence is in.
So, as you can see, even before, scientists and researchers and doctors have been protesting about conducting more studies first before putting this recommendation out there to the public. And years after that, it turns out that Keyes had data not only for 6 countries, but for 22 countries. So why did he allegedly cherry pick 6 countries? It's because the 6 countries showed a clear trend supporting his theory. You know, in the scientific community, in the research field, to be noticed and recognized, you have to discover something. And that was allegedly the reason why Ansel Keys cherry-picked these 6 countries. And with Keys' data in 22 countries, it appeared to be totally random. There were countries who consumed high in saturated fats, yet there is low mortality rate caused by heart diseases. It was clear as day that saturated fat is not the one causing heart diseases. So I'll play you another clip. This is from the course Biohacking Your Brain's Health in Coursera. This is from Emory University, and this topic was touched here, so I want to show it to you.
Interestingly, the epidemiologist and statistician who participated in the 7 countries study did another analysis and looked at 22 countries. Japan had the lowest fat and lowest mortality. France was in the 8th place with high fat and low mortality. The Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, they all had what you would consider a high-fat diet with low mortality. So what is happening there?
So that seems to not align with the theory of Ansel Keys. So to cut to the chase, let's answer the big question. Is fat really bad for you? I really wish this is just a yes or no answer. But just like other macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat, there are good carbs, there are bad carbs, there are good protein, bad protein, and as well as fat. There's no black and white answer here. Under the umbrella of fat, there are saturated fat, unsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and the man-made trans fat. It turns out that we were asking the wrong questions this whole time. It's not about the kind of fat, it's about the quality of the fat we are eating. Fat from nature like coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, grass-fed butter, grass-fed beef, these are shown to benefit the humans from the start. They have tons and tons of health benefits. The rule of thumb to get out of the confusing information is ask yourself how much of the fat has been altered or damaged. What do I mean by that? Seed oils, for example. These are corn oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, all those kinds of oils, took a long and complicated process just to produce a clean oil. And this causes inflammation for most people. And another angle is for the cows. Hormones are injected to grain-fed cows to counteract the diseases they are getting from being fed with grains, which is unnatural for them because they need grass and not grains. Plus, the confined environment is making them really sick. So the countermeasure is to inject them some hormones, which is again so unnatural, and we are altering the natural process. So those foreign substances being injected to these grain-fed cows, they make their way to the fat of these cows, then to us if we eat these beautiful creatures. You are what you eat, but more than ever, you are what you ate. Okay? So stick to local produce and grass-fed cows if you have access to them. I wish uh, deciding if fat is bad or good for you is just like smoking, because we all know smoking is bad. But it's not. And the grain-fed cows are confined and their conditions is not really favorable. So we can help them by consuming grass-fed cows instead of this confined cows. So lastly, what's in it for you? After knowing this information about tons of research studies, I love science and research that is aiming to better humanity. I just want to have a final word here regarding looking at researches, and I myself find reading these articles boring. So if a random guy or even licensed doctors throw a research study at you, don't get sold without thinking for yourself. I learned this the hard way when I was sold to ketogenic diet without really thinking for myself, because I did the wrong way of ketogenic diet, but that's another story. That's another video. I want to tell you this. For one, research is influenced by different factors. One of which is, what is the goal of the researcher? We can take Ansel Keys' goal, which was to prove that dietary saturated fat is bad for your heart. It's clogging the arteries. So, as much as science aims to be objective, we have that in play here, the goal of the researcher. And number two, who funded the research? That also plays a big role when conducting researches. So, check for the integrity of the researcher and his claims. There's no way of really knowing if the researcher is honest or has your best interest in heart. But your interest might not be in their minds at all. Do not take one's word unless it makes sense to you. Instead, you can use research claims to think for yourself. Look at history, the hard facts, your own experiences, use common sense, and come up with your own conclusion. Experiment on yourself, have an inventory of what works and what doesn't work for you. I guarantee in a year's time, you're going to thank yourself for taking back control of your health and not just relying on other people's claims. So that's it. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, guys. I have just one request from you. Please do hit the like button and subscribe if you are enjoying my videos, because that is the only way that I know that you are enjoying my videos. So that gives me inspired to create new videos for you. So see you in the next video.